The International Space Station Alpha hung like a jewel against Earth's azure backdrop, its solar panels catching the first rays of dawn. Dr. Sarah Chen floated in the observation module, her dark eyes fixed on the endless expanse of stars. After 6 months aboard the station, the view still took her breath away, but today something felt different. The stars seemed to shimmer with an unusual intensity, as if they were trying to tell her something. Sarah's meditation was interrupted by a sudden flash in the distance. At first, she thought it might be space debris, common enough in Earth's orbit. But as she watched, the object moved with purpose, decelerating in a way that defied natural physics. Her heart began to race as she realized what she was witnessing. "Control, this is Dr. Chen," she called into her comm unit. "I'm tracking an unidentified object approaching from Vector 739er. It's performing controlled maneuvers." The response from Control was immediate, but before they could finish their transmission, the object came into clear view. It was a ship unlike anything human engineers had designed. Its hull seemed to ripple like liquid metal, despite obvious damage along its port side. Tendrils of blue energy crackled around several ruptures in its surface. "My God," Sarah whispered, forgetting her calm was still active. "It's not one of ours." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The ship, now confirmed to be of extraterrestrial origin, had initiated docking procedures with the station. Every space agency on Earth was now involved, their representatives crowding the emergency channels with a cacophony of voices, orders, and theories. Sarah found herself at the center of it all. As the station's leading xenobiologist, she would be part of the first contact team. Years of training and hypothetical scenarios hadn't prepared her for the reality of this moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she secured her protective suit, each click of the fastenings echoing in the preparation chamber. "Remember," Commander Rodriguez's voice crackled through her helmet comm, "we follow first contact protocols. No sudden movements, maintain distance, and above all, be ready for anything." The docking procedure completed with a soft shudder that ran through the station's frame. Sarah stood with the security team at the airlock, her breath loud in her ears. The outer door of the vessel opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure, revealing a corridor bathed in soft, pulsing blue light. That's when they saw her. The alien emerged slowly, each movement careful and deliberate. She, and somehow Sarah knew instantly it was a she, stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her form was humanoid, but there the similarities ended. Her skin had a translucent quality, like opal catching light, with patterns of bioluminescence flowing beneath the surface. But what caught Sarah's attention were her eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle, each one a swirling pool of silver. The security team raised their weapons instinctively, but Sarah stepped forward, her hand raised in a gesture of peace. The alien's eyes fixed on her, and suddenly the air seemed to thicken with emotion. Sarah felt it like a physical wave, fear, exhaustion, and something else, something she couldn't quite name. Then the alien began to cry. The tears that fell from those silver eyes weren't water. They were like liquid starlight, each droplet leaving trails of luminescence as they floated in the station's microgravity. But the emotion behind them was unmistakably familiar, relief, profound, and overwhelming. The alien took another step forward, then collapsed. Sarah moved without thinking, breaking protocol to catch the falling figure. As she did, images flooded her mind, a peaceful world of crystal spires and floating cities, then fire raining from the sky. Ships massive and dark, blotting out the stars. A desperate escape, a lone survivor carrying something precious. Hope, mixed with terrible responsibility. "She's injured," Sarah called out, noticing the dark patches on the alien's side that seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. "We need medical support immediately." The next few days were a crash course in xenobiology. The alien, who they learned was called Zierra, recovered slowly in the station's medical bay, modified to accommodate her unique physiology. Sarah spent every moment she could spare studying their visitor, learning to interpret the subtle changes in her bioluminescent patterns that seemed to correspond with different emotional states. Communication was challenging but not impossible. Sierra's species, the Lumini, were natural empaths, capable of sharing thoughts and emotions through direct contact. While humans couldn't reciprocate fully, they could receive these communications, though the experience was often overwhelming. It was during one such exchange that Sarah finally understood why Sierra had cried upon seeing them. The Lumini had been watching Earth for centuries, fascinated by humanity's rapid evolution and development. But what truly amazed them was humanity's capacity for empathy, the ability to feel for others, to help strangers, to fight for causes beyond their own immediate survival. "You're kind," Sierra conveyed through a mixture of gestures and emotional projections, "are unique in all the galaxy. You feel so deeply, love so fiercely, and yet you are so young. When I saw you, I saw hope." Sarah wanted to ask more, to understand what Sierra meant by hope and why she had fled to Earth of all places. But before she could, the station's alarm system blared to life. On the main viewport, multiple objects had appeared, their massive forms blocking out the stars just as they had in Sierra's memories. The Lumini's pursuers had arrived, and Earth's first contact was about to become humanity's first interstellar crisis. As Sarah looked at Sierra, she saw the alien's bioluminescence dim with fear. But beneath that fear was something stronger: trust. Sierra had chosen Earth for a reason, and now they would all discover if that choice had been wise. Sarah squared her shoulders and activated the station's general comm. Whatever was coming, humanity would face it together with their new ally. After all, they had already shared tears, and in the vastness of space, such connections were rarer than any element and more valuable than all the stars. The massive ships looming beyond the station's viewport cast shadows that seemed to swallow the stars themselves. Sarah stood beside Sierra in the observation module, watching as the alien's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with increasing anxiety. The patterns had become familiar to her over the past few days: quick, sharp flashes indicating fear, slow ripples suggesting deep thought. "They are the Dominion," Sierra projected, her 3 silver eyes fixed on the approaching vessels. The emotional transfer that accompanied the thought carried centuries of dread, countless memories of worlds stripped bare and civilizations reduced to ash. They believe they are the only ones worthy of achieving transcendence. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as the alien's emotions washed over her. The Dominion's ships were like nothing humanity had ever conceived, massive geometric structures that seemed to bend light around them, their surfaces covered in patterns that hurt the eyes if observed too long. They made the most advanced human spacecraft look like children's toys in comparison. Commander Rodriguez's voice crackled over the station's comm system. "Dr. Chin, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. It's being broadcast on all frequencies in multiple languages, including English." The message began to play throughout the station, its tone cold and precise. "This is Overseer Vaxthor of the Dominion Expeditionary Force. You harbor a fugitive of the collective. Surrender the Lumini immediately, or face the consequences of defying the natural order." Sarah glanced at Sierra, whose luminescence had dimmed to almost nothing, a sign of deep distress she had learned to recognize. Through their limited emotional connection, Sarah caught fragments of memories: the Lumini's desperate last stand, the fall of their crystal cities, and something else, something Sierra was protecting. Something that made the Dominion willing to cross galaxies to find her. "What are they really after, Sierra?" Sarah asked softly. "What's so important that they would follow you this far?" Instead of projecting an answer, Sierra raised her hand to Sarah's temple. The contact was like a spark igniting a fusion reaction in Sarah's mind. Images, emotions, and understanding flooded through her consciousness. She saw the truth of the Lumini, not just empaths, but shepherds of consciousness itself. For millennia, they had guided species toward what they called the Great Symphony, a state of universal empathic connection that transcended physical boundaries. The Dominion feared this connection. They believed in hierarchy, in the strong ruling the weak. The idea of all species achieving transcendence together was anathema to their philosophy. They had nearly succeeded in wiping out the Lumini, but they had failed to understand one crucial detail: the Great Symphony couldn't be destroyed, only passed on. Sarah gasped as she understood. "You're carrying it, aren't you?" The key to your people's knowledge? Sierra's patterns shifted to a deep, resonant pulse, confirmation. But it is not just knowledge, she projected. It is possibility. The potential for all sentient beings to achieve harmony. And humanity, your species has shown a unique capacity for this connection. You feel so deeply, care so completely, even for those unlike yourselves. You are our last hope. The station shuddered as another transmission came through, this one accompanied by a gravitational pulse that made the whole creak. Your species is young, Vaxthor's voice announced. You cannot comprehend the consequences of protecting the Lumini. Surrender her, and we will share technologies beyond your imagination. Resist, and we will demonstrate the price of defiance. Sarah straightened her spine, a plan forming in her mind. The Dominion's message had revealed something crucial. They were afraid. Not just of the Lumini's gift, but of humanity's potential to use it. They wouldn't have offered a bargain if they weren't concerned about what might happen if humans and Lumini work together. Commander, she called over the comm, I need to speak with Earth's representatives. All of them. I think I know why Sierra chose us, and more importantly, I think I know how we can protect her. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Sarah found herself in virtual conference with leaders from every major nation on Earth, explaining what she had learned. The Lumini's gift wasn't just about empathy, it was about connection, about breaking down the barriers that kept conscious beings apart. And humans, with their extraordinary capacity for both logic and emotion, might be uniquely suited to helping spread this gift throughout the galaxy. As she spoke, Sierra's patterns began to pulse with a new rhythm, hope mixed with determination. The alien stepped forward, adding her own testimony through a combination of projected emotions and the rudimentary translation software they had developed. Together, they painted a picture of possibility, Earth becoming not just another world in the galaxy, but a beacon of connection, a bridge between different forms of consciousness. The response from Earth's leaders was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity would not bow to threats, especially not when doing so meant betraying their principles. They had barely begun to explore the stars, but they already understood something the Dominion had forgotten. True strength came not from domination, but from cooperation. As the final votes were tallied and Earth's decision was made official, Sarah turned to Sierra. The alien's patterns were now pulsing with a frequency she had never seen before, brilliant, complex waves that seemed to dance across her translucent skin. They're afraid of us working together, Sarah said, because together, we might actually succeed where your people alone could not. We might show the galaxy another way. Sierra's response flowed through their empathic connection like a warm current. Yes. And that is why the Dominion will do anything to stop us. What comes next will test your species in ways you cannot imagine. Are you certain humanity is ready? Sarah looked out at the massive Dominion ships, then back at the beautiful blue marble of Earth hanging in space. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats before, ice ages, plagues, their own destructive tendencies. Each time, they had survived not by domination, but by coming together, by finding new ways to connect and cooperate. We're ready, she said, feeling the truth of it in her bones. And we're not alone anymore. As if in response to her words, alerts began blaring throughout the station. The Dominion ships were powering up their weapons systems. The time for talk was over. Now, humanity would have to prove that their compassion was matched by their courage, and that their determination to protect their new ally was stronger than their fear of the unknown. The bridge between worlds had been built. Whether it would stand or fall would depend on what happened next. The emergency alarms echoed through the International Space Station Alpha as the Dominion ships maintained their threatening posture. In the hastily converted conference room, Sarah sat with Sierra, surrounded by holographic projections of Earth's military leaders. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with, General Zhang's hologram stated, her expression stern. Dr. Chen, you've had the most contact with our guest. What can you tell us about the Dominion's capabilities? Before Sarah could respond, Sierra stepped forward. Her bioluminescent patterns shifted to a deep, somber purple, a color Sarah had learned indicated memories of great loss. Through their growing empathic connection, Ziera began to share the true history of her people's conflict with the Dominion. The images flowed like a river of liquid light through Sarah's mind. She saw the Lamini civilization at its height, a federation of worlds connected not by conquest, but by shared consciousness. Their crystal cities weren't just beautiful, they were vast empathic amplifiers, allowing billions of beings to share thoughts and feelings across light years. The Dominion rose from a species that rejected our gift, Ziera projected, her 3 silver eyes dimming with sorrow. They had achieved space travel through aggressive expansion, strip mining entire planets for resources. When we offered them a place in the Great Symphony, they saw only weakness in our desire for harmony. The next images made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. The Dominion's first attack had come without warning. Their weapons weren't just designed to destroy, they were created to sever the empathic connections that bound Lamini society together. Entire populations went mad as their shared consciousness was violently torn apart. They believed that consciousness is a resource to be controlled. Ziera continued, her patterns flickering with ancient anger. They seek transcendence through dominance, not harmony. That is why they fear what I carry, the seed of universal connection that could undo everything they have built. Admiral Patel's hologram leaned forward. And why exactly did you choose Earth? Surely there were other worlds, other species that could have helped you. Ziera's response came as a wave of emotions and memories. Sarah translated for those who couldn't receive the empathic projection. The Lamini had been watching us for centuries. They saw something in humanity that they recognized, an innate ability to form deep connections despite our differences, to feel empathy for other species, to sacrifice for ideals larger than ourselves. We also saw your capacity for conflict, Ziera added, her patterns shifting to a cautionary red. But unlike the Dominion, you learn from your mistakes. You strive to do better. You dream not of ruling the stars, but of exploring them, understanding them, connecting with them. The station shuddered as another gravitational pulse from the Dominion ships washed over it. The message was clear, their patience was wearing thin. They're scanning us, Commander Rodriguez reported, rushing into the conference room. Our sensors indicate they're mapping every detail of Earth's defensive capabilities, or lack thereof. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what this meant. The Dominion wasn't just after Ziera. They wanted to ensure that humanity could never become a threat to their vision of the galaxy. Through their empathic link, she sensed Ziera's growing despair. But then something unexpected happened. As the aliens' emotions flowed through their connection, Sarah began to notice patterns she hadn't seen before. The Lumini's gift, the seed of universal consciousness, wasn't just a passive force. It was adapting, evolving, responding to the unique way human minds processed empathy. Ziera, Sarah said slowly, an idea forming in her mind. Your people's technology, the crystal cities, they were based on amplifying natural empathic abilities, weren't they? The aliens' patterns pulsed with confirmation. Yes! The crystals resonated with our consciousness, allowing us to extend our connection across vast distances. Sarah turned to the military leaders. What if we could do the same thing? Not with crystals, but with something we already have? The global satellite network, the internet, our worldwide communications grid, they're all tools we built to connect with each other. What if we could modify them to carry not just data, but consciousness? The room erupted in discussion. Scientists were called in, theories were proposed and debated. Through it all, Ziera's patterns began to pulse with growing hope. She shared more memories, technical details about how the Lamini had achieved their empathic network. Human engineers and physicists began to see possibilities they had never imagined. But time was running out. The Dominion ships had begun to move into attack formation. Their next message was brief and final. You have one planetary rotation to surrender the Lamini. After that, we will ensure humanity never threatens the natural order. As the ultimatum hung in the air, Sarah looked at the assembled leaders of Earth. We have a choice to make, she said. We can give up Ziera and submit to the Dominion's vision of the galaxy. Or we can stand and fight, not just with weapons, but with everything that makes us human. Our creativity, our determination, and most importantly, our ability to connect with each other. The decision didn't require a vote. One by one, the holographic figures nodded. Humanity had spent too long dreaming of the stars to let their first contact end in submission to tyranny. "Begin the preparations," General Zhang ordered. "And may whatever gods exist help us all." As the holograms winked out, Sarah turned to Ziera. The alien's patterns had shifted to a color she had never seen before, a brilliant, swirling aurora of hope and determination. "Your people are either very brave or very foolish," Ziera projected, but there was warmth in the thought. "Maybe both," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "But that's what makes us human." Outside the station's viewport, Earth's military forces began to mobilize. But the real battle wouldn't be fought with conventional weapons. In labs and research centers around the world, scientists and engineers worked frantically to implement Sarah's plan. They had less than 24 hours to turn humanity's communication network into something that had never existed before, a platform for consciousness itself. The shadows of the past were long, but the light of human determination burned brighter. The next few hours would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of consciousness throughout the galaxy. 23 hours remained until the Dominion's deadline, and Earth was alive with unprecedented activity. In every major city, engineers worked to modify communication satellites and ground stations. The global internet, originally designed to share information, was being transformed into something entirely new, a network capable of carrying consciousness itself. Sarah stood in the station's main control room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the worldwide effort. Ziera floated beside her, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in sync with the data streams flowing across the screens. Through their empathic connection, Sarah could feel the aliens' mixture of hope and concern. "Your people work quickly," Ziera projected, her 3 silver eyes tracking the progress displays. "But the Dominion will not wait idly. They understand the threat we pose to their power." As if in response to her words, new alerts flashed across the screens. The Dominion ships had launched what appeared to be probes, hundreds of them, descending toward Earth's atmosphere in a deadly silver rain. "They're targeting our communication infrastructure," Commander Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with tension. "They know what we're trying to do." Sarah watched as Earth's defensive systems engaged the probes. Missiles and energy weapons lit up the sky in a desperate attempt to protect the vital communication nodes. Some probes were destroyed, but others slipped through, their impacts sending cascades of disruption through the developing network. "We need more time," Sarah said, her mind racing. "Ziera, can you show me again how your people's crystal cities worked? There might be something we're missing." The alien's touch was gentle against Sarah's temple, but the flow of information was intense. This time, Sarah noticed something new in the technical memories. The crystals hadn't just been conductors of consciousness, they had been living things, grown and shaped by the very connections they facilitated. "That's it," she whispered, eyes widening. "We've been thinking about this wrong. We don't need to build a new network, we need to let it grow." She quickly shared her insight with the technical teams on Earth. The modified communication systems didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to provide a foundation. Once the first connections were established, human consciousness itself would shape the network, strengthening and expanding it naturally. But the Dominion wasn't finished. Their ships began emitting a new type of energy, one that made every electronic device on Earth fluctuate wildly. Through their empathic link, Sarah felt Ziera's recognition and horror. "Neural disruption fields," the alien projected. "They use these to shatter our crystal cities. They try to prevent the formation of any conscious network." The effects were immediate and devastating. Across the planet, people reported headaches and disorientation. The very technology they were trying to modify seemed to resist their efforts. The Dominion had centuries of experience in preventing exactly what humanity was attempting to achieve. Yet something unexpected happened. As the disruption field intensified, humans began to adapt. In labs and control centers worldwide, people found they could focus through the interference by working together, supporting each other. The very empathy that Zierra had seen in humanity was becoming a shield against the Dominion's weapons. Remarkable, Zierra projected, her patterns shifting to a color of amazement. Your species' natural resilience, it's actually strengthening the connections we're trying to build. The realization sparked a new strategy. Instead of fighting the disruption field, Earth's scientists began using it. The interference patterns became a template, showing them exactly how to structure their growing network to resist the Dominion's attacks. But victory would come at a price. The energy required to maintain these connections was enormous. Power grids strained worldwide as every available watt was diverted to the effort. Cities went dark, sacrificing their power to keep the network alive. Then came the Dominion's final move. Their ships began to power up their main weapons, devices capable of severing the very fabric of space-time. They intended to create a void around Earth, cutting it off from the rest of the universe permanently. If they succeed, Zierra projected, her patterns dimming with fear, your world will be trapped in a bubble of isolated space. No light, no signals, no connection to the rest of existence. It is a fate worse than destruction. Sarah felt the weight of the moment crash over her. Humanity faced a choice: surrender to the Dominion and live in subjugation, or risk everything for a chance at something greater. Through the growing empathic network, she could feel the collective consciousness of humanity grappling with this decision. The answer came not in words, but in actions. All across the planet, people began to gather. In parks and town squares, in schools and workplaces, humans came together physically even as their minds reached out through the developing network. Each connection strengthened the whole, each shared consciousness adding to the growing symphony of human thought and emotion. The Dominion ships fired their weapons, reality-warping energy lancing down toward Earth. But where these beams struck the growing field of human consciousness, they found something they had never encountered before, a network of minds that bent but did not break, that adapted and grew stronger with each attack. In the space station, Sarah gasped as she felt it all through her connection with Zierra. The alien's gift, the seed of universal consciousness, was merging with humanity's innate capacity for connection. Together, they were creating something entirely new, a hybrid network that combined the best of both species. Your people, Zierra projected, her patterns blazing with joy and wonder, you're not just reproducing what my species created. You're evolving it, making it into something even the Dominion cannot predict or control. But the price of this achievement was mounting. The strain on Earth's infrastructure was reaching critical levels. The very act of maintaining these connections threatened to burn out the technology supporting them. And the Dominion, recognizing the danger to their dominance, was preparing to unleash their full destructive power. As alarms blared throughout the station, Sarah realized they had reached the moment of truth. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of consciousness itself in the galaxy. The price of compassion had been high, but the cost of failure would be infinitely higher. The question was, could humanity pay the price that victory would demand? The void-creating weapons of the Dominion ships cast strange shadows across Earth's atmosphere, distorting light in ways that defied physics. But humanity's response created an even more extraordinary sight. The global network of consciousness manifested as visible auroras of light, rippling across the planet in patterns that mirrored Zierra's bioluminescence. In the space station, Sarah watched through tears as cities sacrificed their power grids one by one, plunging themselves into darkness to feed the energy-hungry network. But in that darkness, something beautiful emerged, the light of human consciousness itself, visible from space as threads of energy connecting every point of human contact. "They're about to fire again," Commander Rodriguez announced, his voice strained. "All remaining planetary defenses are ready, but against weapons that tear space itself." He left the sentence unfinished. Sarah felt Zierra's hand on her shoulder, the alien's touch sending waves of clarity through their empathic link. In that moment of connection, Sarah understood something fundamental about the nature of consciousness and reality itself. "The network," she said suddenly, her voice filled with revelation. "We're not just using it to communicate, we're changing the fundamental structure of space-time around Earth. Every human mind connected to it is acting as an anchor point for reality itself. Through their link, Ziera confirmed Sarah's intuition. The Lamini had never achieved this level of integration because they had focused solely on their own form of consciousness. Humanity's diverse ways of thinking, feeling, and connecting had created something entirely new. The Dominion ships fired, their reality-warping beams lancing down toward Earth. But where they struck the network of human consciousness, something unprecedented happened. Instead of creating voids, the beams were absorbed, their energy redirected and transformed by the collective will of billions of human minds. Impossible came the voice of Overseer Vaxthor, broadcasting on all frequencies. Your species is too young, too primitive to wield consciousness as a weapon. We're not wielding it as a weapon, Sarah responded, understanding flowing through her. We're using it as it was always meant to be used, to connect, to grow, to transform. Every human mind in the network isn't fighting your weapons. They're accepting them, understanding them, and changing them. The truth of her words manifested in spectacular fashion. The Dominion's void-creating beams, designed to sever connections, were being transformed by human consciousness into bridges. Where they struck, the network grew stronger, expanding beyond Earth's atmosphere and reaching toward the stars. In that moment, Sarah felt something she would never be able to fully describe, the conscious awareness of billions of humans, all connected, all working in harmony while maintaining their beautiful diversity of thought and emotion. Scientists' analytical minds worked alongside artists' creativity, children's wonder merged with elderly wisdom, every type of human consciousness contributing its unique perspective to the whole. Through their empathic link, Ziera shared her own revelation. This is what my people sought for millennia, she projected, her patterns pulsing with joy and wonder. Not just connection, but transformation through diversity. Your species hasn't just preserved our gift, you've shown us its true potential. The Dominion ships began to retreat, their weapons useless against a force they couldn't understand. But humanity's network didn't stop growing. It reached out, touching the consciousness of the Dominion crews themselves. Not to attack or control, but to share, to understand, to connect. Sarah felt it through the network, the moment when the first Dominion mind opened to the connection. It was one of the younger crew members, their consciousness flickering with doubt about their society's rigid hierarchy. Through the network, they experienced something their species had denied themselves for millennia, the joy of true connection without control, of strength through diversity rather than dominance. Like a cascade of falling dominoes, more Dominion minds began to open. Their resistance, built on centuries of believing in separation and control, began to crumble in the face of something more powerful, the experience of genuine connection without loss of self. Their ships, Commander Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with wonder. They're powering down their weapons. All of them. But the true miracle was happening on a scale visible only through the network. The Dominion crews were experiencing what their society had fought so hard to prevent, the understanding that true transcendence couldn't be achieved through dominance. It could only come through connection, through the harmonious blending of different types of consciousness. Ziera's patterns blazed with colors Sarah had never seen before, emotions too complex for human words. Your people, she projected, have achieved in hours what my species couldn't accomplish in millennia. You've shown that the strongest connections are not forced, but freely chosen. That consciousness itself evolves best through diversity, not conformity. The network continued to grow, each human mind connected to it serving as a beacon, inviting others to join not through coercion, but through example. The Dominion ships hung motionless in space, their crews experiencing for the first time the power of genuine connection. Sarah felt tears rolling down her cheeks, but these were tears of joy and wonder. Through the network, she could feel similar emotions echoing from billions of human minds. They had faced extinction and emerged not just survived, but transformed. Humanity had proven that their greatest strength wasn't in weapons or technology, but in their capacity to connect, to empathize, to grow together while celebrating their differences. As the last Dominion weapons powered down, Sarah turned to Ziera. The aliens' patterns had stabilized into a new configuration, one that seemed to mirror the aurora of human consciousness surrounding Earth. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, though she could already feel the answer through their connection. Sierra's response flowed through their link with the clarity of crystal. "Now, we build something new. Together." The echo of that thought resonated through the network, carrying with it the promise of a future neither humanity nor the Lamini had dared to imagine. The price of compassion had been high, but its reward was beyond measure, the dawn of a new age of consciousness in the galaxy. 1 month after the Dominion's retreat, the International Space Station Alpha had become the center of a new kind of diplomatic mission. The station's observation module, once designed simply for viewing Earth, now housed representatives from 3 civilizations: human, Lamini, and, most surprisingly, Dominion. Sarah stood beside Sierra, watching as the latest group of Dominion youth arrived through their newly established consciousness transfer technology. These weren't physical visitors, but mental projections, their consciousness transmitted through the network humanity had created. Their eagerness to learn and connect was a stark contrast to their species' former ideology of separation and control. "They're like children discovering color for the first time," Sierra projected, her patterns shifting in gentle waves of amusement and hope. "Each new connection, each shared experience, transforms them." Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of it through the network. The Dominion's younger generation had embraced the change with unexpected enthusiasm, their natural curiosity overcoming centuries of conditioning. Through the network, they shared their own unique perspective on consciousness, adding new dimensions to the growing symphony of connected minds. Ambassador Chin, a voice called, still strange to Sarah's ears despite her new role. "The council is ready." The council chamber had been modified to accommodate all 3 species. Holographic interfaces allowed Dominion consciousness projections to participate alongside physical representatives. At the center of the room, a crystal structure, a gift from Sierra's rescued people, amplified and focused the empathic connections between all present. As Sarah took her seat, she felt the familiar surge of connection through the network. Each mind present added its own unique note to the harmony: human creativity and determination, Lamini wisdom and empathy, and now, surprisingly, Dominion precision and depth of focus. What had begun as a defensive measure had evolved into something far more profound, a true merging of different types of consciousness, each maintaining its uniqueness while contributing to a greater whole. "The first deep space amplification nodes are ready," announced Dr. Patel, her holographic form flickering with excitement. Once activated, they'll extend the network's range to the nearest star systems. Through the network, Sarah felt the ripple of anticipation from all present. The nodes represented humanity's first major contribution to galactic civilization, a new type of technology that combined human innovation, Lamini consciousness sharing, and Dominion space-time manipulation. "There's something you should see first," Sierra projected, her patterns shifting to a deep, meaningful pulse. With a gesture, she activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the crystal cities of her homeworld, long thought destroyed by the Dominion's attacks. "Life finds a way to persist," she continued, her projection filled with joy. "The seeds of our civilization, scattered across the galaxy, have begun to respond to your network. They're growing again, but differently now. The connection you've created is helping them evolve into something new." The images showed crystal structures rebuilding themselves, but not in their original form. These new growths incorporated elements of human technology and Dominion energy manipulation. They were becoming hybrid structures, capable of supporting and enhancing all 3 types of consciousness. "We've received similar reports from 17 different worlds," added Vaxthor's successor, first speaker Colrin, his consciousness projection tinged with wonder. "The network is not just connecting minds, it's transforming the very fabric of reality wherever it reaches." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes as she absorbed the implications. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community hadn't just prevented a war or saved a species. They had initiated a transformation that was reshaping the very nature of civilization itself. Through the network, she felt an echo of her emotions from billions of connected minds across Earth and beyond. Humans going about their daily lives while simultaneously participating in a vast, interstellar consciousness. Children growing up taking for granted their ability to share thoughts and feelings with beings from other worlds. Scientists and artists collaborating across species boundaries to create things that would have been impossible for any one civilization alone. I remember when you first saw me, Sierra projected, her patterns matching the silver of her tears. You were surprised by my crying. Now I understand even better why my people chose Earth. Your species doesn't just accept differences. You celebrate them. You transform them into strengths. The chamber filled with a symphony of consciousness as each representative shared their own perspective on the changes they had witnessed. The network carried not just their thoughts, but their hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. It was a future none of them could have imagined just a month ago, one where consciousness itself was becoming something new, something greater than the sum of its parts. An alert chimed softly, indicating that the deep space nodes were ready for activation. Sarah stood, feeling the weight of the moment. Through the network, she sensed Sierra's pride, the Dominion representative's anticipation, and the collective excitement of billions of human minds. Together, she said, both aloud and through the network, letting every connected consciousness feel the truth of the words, we're about to take our next step into the unknown. Not as separate species, but as something new, a harmony of consciousness that preserves and celebrates our differences while creating something greater than ourselves. As the nodes activated one by one, Sarah felt the network expanding, reaching out toward the stars. The aurora of connected consciousness that surrounded Earth grew brighter, visible now from distant space as a beacon of hope and transformation. Tears of joy fell not just from human eyes, but from Lamini and even the consciousness projections of the Dominion representatives. They were tears that represented not an ending, but a beginning. The start of a new chapter in the story of consciousness itself. A story that had begun with an alien woman crying at the sight of human potential, and now continued with tears of joy shed by three species united in a dream of what they could become together. The universe, vast and mysterious, waited to be explored by this new consciousness. And somewhere in the infinite expanse of space, other civilizations would soon see Earth's beacon of connected consciousness shining in the darkness. They would learn about the species that had transformed galactic society not through force or dominance, but through the simple, profound power of connection and compassion. The tears that had begun this story were now part of something greater, a testament to the truth that the strongest forces in the universe weren't the ones that divided and controlled, but those that connected and transformed. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger reality, and they had done it in the most human way possible, by reaching out, by connecting, by showing that the greatest power in the universe was the ability to grow together while remaining uniquely ourselves. The next chapter of galactic history was about to begin, written not in the language of power and control, but in the universal language of tears, tears of joy, of connection, of transformation. And this time, every consciousness would have a voice in telling the story.